Get your man the flute to play song, the fuck.
Dear Gwitch, everyone, Kachima Tashiv, and welcome back to episode number 80 of the Inline Flute podcast with me, your host, Inline. I hope you all like the new intro, by the way. Video watchers will have saw a very snazzy new video that yours truly made today. Spent the entire afternoon slaving over a hot laptop. And if you're on the audio version, you would have heard the music. Well, hopefully you heard the music. I've put in Drug Dealing Pagans by my favourite band, Kneecap, who are an Irish rap trio who sing in Irish, as the new intro music. I don't know if they're going to make me take it down, copyright and all that. I don't know. So if you heard the music, it's great. If you didn't hear the music, I've been sued. Again. But I shot my shot and I regret nothing. So Inline J has got a new dress on for the big special occasion, all in time for episode number 80. A new look on Inline J. I've actually migrated the podcast to a new host as well. It's all change here. It's all happening. And so we needed a guest befitting of the occasion. So this week's guest is someone genuinely, I've been trying to get on this podcast for ages, but she's an incredibly busy woman. So she started becoming a social media influencer, personality, whatever you want to call it, around the same time that I launched Inline G. So we were on Instagram together and on TikTok together at the same kind of time, and we talked a lot during that time about what we're going through and how we all fitted into this crazy flute world that we're all in. So this week's guest is none other than Cassie O'Hanlon, or you may know her better as the Tattooed Flute Teacher. So if you haven't seen Cassie's content, stop the podcast, hit spacebar, hit stop, right? Go subscribe. Instagram, YouTube, wherever it is, go now. Go watch all that, okay? You need to. Then come back, alright? If you're already subscribed, you know how great she is. And you know why I've been trying to get her on for so long, okay? Cassie is leading the charge for empathetic and kind teaching, and she is influencing the new wave of young flute players to really take on this chaotic, crazy modern world that we're all living in. I love her content, and I am so delighted I finally got her on. We had an amazing chat all about, yes, her teaching style and why she's doing it, but also how it's like as a woman to be in that social media world, the less healthy things that are going on, especially on Facebook, etc., etc. There's a lot going on there. I don't know what's going to make the final cut, but it's all amazing. So you guys know I only do online interviews for very special guests. No exception. So if you're a regular listener, you know what's about to happen here. Skip ahead a minute, okay? But if you're a new listener, it's your first time around here, give me your ears for just a wee moment. The Inline G podcast is free and will always be free. That is a guarantee. But if you wish to donate to the podcast, you can now do so through the Patreon. On the screen now is the address, and for the audio listeners, it is patreon.com/the Inline G Flute podcast. It costs €5 a month, or whatever that is in your made up money in America or Canada or wherever you are. It's not very much. Now listen, I make an episode of this podcast every single week. Okay, every Friday you're getting an episode. Most of them are solo episodes, sometimes they're guests. They are an enormous amount of work. I do all this on my own. All the production, all the editing, all the script writing. I know it feels like I pulled the episodes out of my arse, but I actually do have to research them and write them. It takes a lot of work. Now, it's a lot of work. If you listen to it and you think, oh, I got 4 episodes, I really enjoyed it. If I saw Gareth in the pub at the end of the month, I'd buy him a pint to say thank you. Do it virtually. So go sign up over there, donate some money to it. If you can afford it, you're not going to get anything extra, but you get like advanced episodes and you get exclusive merch and stuff like that. You do get a couple of things, but the main idea of the Patreon is if you can afford to do it, you're supporting me as an artist to make the work I want to make. So it's great if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, it's grand. You can keep listening for free. Times are hard. We're all musicians, or most of us are musicians. We're not getting much money at the minute, so don't worry. You can listen for free. It's a system based on soundness and kindness. Thank you very much. So here is this week's Inline G Flute podcast with Cassie O'Hanlon, aka the Tattooed Flute Teacher. Okay. Do you find it gives you like a bit of like, I don't know, not confidence, but it's sort of like your alter ego in that sense. So it gives you a bit of confidence. Like I always find saying I'm a podcaster, for example, it's like this persona of the Gareth the podcaster, Inline G, where I get to have a little bit more fun with it. And I spoke to Jay about this when she does the wild flute thing. I said, yeah, when I sort of call myself that, it gives a confidence. Do you find that when you're saying like I'm the tattoo flute teacher? And yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You know, it's funny because that is something that I really struggled with, especially when I first started the whole tattooed flute teacher thing. I have always kind of struggled with self-confidence. I've kind of struggled with putting myself out there. And you know, starting that was definitely an exercise in, you know, who am I and how am I going to present myself to the world? And can I present myself this broadly, you know, but yeah, having that kind of title, or at least internally, that I'm the tattooed flute teacher. And, you know, some people recognize that. They're like, oh
yeah.
I love your channel. I'm like, yes, you know, and it builds a sense of I'm doing something, which I think is really cool.
It is. Actually, I think, again, I should have researched this probably a little bit more, but I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty confident saying this. I think you started Tattooed Flute Teacher in and around the same time that I started Inline G. I feel like I remember watching you sort of come through like a year and a half ago, something around that.
Yeah, I'm at about the 2-year mark. So yeah, we were
something. Okay,
I think we were coming into the world about the same time.
Which is so cool.
Yeah. And I think I saw quite a few of like these very different types of accounts, you know, these a little bit more I don't know, personality type accounts for flute playing coming into the world in that like post-COVID era, which was just so cool.
Yeah, it was post-COVID actually. Yeah, mine wasn't deliberately post-COVID, but it was. Yeah, it kind of came post-COVID.
Yeah, mine wasn't deliberately post-COVID either. Mine actually came as a result of me quitting my corporate job.
Okay.
I did quit my corporate job, and then 3 months later, I started Tattooed Flute Teacher. And
quit your corporate job to pursue teaching, or quit your corporate job and then thought, we'll see what happens?
Quit my corporate job and thought, we'll see what happens. And I started teaching. I took on like a random student just to, you know, kind of get back into it because I enjoyed teaching. And I wasn't really sure what my next move was. And I kind of missed it. But I just took on a random student, and then it just everything clicked into place. And I went, oh my gosh, I was supposed to do this. This corporate thing was a weird detour. I was supposed to do this.
Yeah, but it is it's an insane amount of work building up a flute studio. Like, I've tried to do it, but I've sort of done it over the years, but I always felt like over the years, you're looking at people online, you're like, it seems like everybody else is doing this apart from me. Everybody else seems to have got full studios, they're all making loads of money, and I can't do it. What is going on with me? And then the more I start to think about it, I think, are they? Are they all just pretending they are? Are we all just playing into this charade? Because it is an insane amount of work to build up a flute studio. And I like that about your content from day one, was you're very open and honest about the whole process of it and what it involves in it. And you're not trying to sell people shady stuff, which is very appreciated as well. But yeah, at the start, was it difficult to start building it up? How did you find it?
Yeah, it was very difficult to start with. It was very slow rolling. You know, I started with one student, which was just a random kind of word of mouth thing. And then, you know, I started my Tattooed Flute Teacher account, and things started to kind of progress from there with some online students and just getting some people who were like, I kind of like what you have to say, you know, but one thing that I will say is I fully expected it to take a long time because my corporate job was actually in sales. So I worked for a company. I don't know if I can say the company name. I don't know if you care.
They can try to sue me if they want. They can join the list of people trying to sue me, to be honest. Take a ticket, lads.
So I worked for a company called Sweetwater Sound, which is like a huge retailer in the like music instrument and like recording world. And so basically the way that their sales job works is you start from zero, right? So day one, you sit down at your desk after 3 months of training, and you sit down at your desk and they're like, here's a phone, here's an email address, make calls and build a customer base. So you start from making $0. Yeah. You were making like $0. There is no base. Well, there's a little bit of a base pay, but it comes down to like about $10 an hour US.
How is that
low.
legal?
It's
well,
technically it's a salary commission thing.
Okay.
So, but with that, you get a lot of grit, right? And you start to understand that, you know, things don't happen overnight.
Yeah.
Right. So 5 or 6 months in, you've built this database of like, you know, maybe a couple thousand people that you're contacting regularly and that are buying from you.
Wow.
And that's kind of the way that I framed this. I'm going to build my flute studio in my mind. I'm like, it's going to be years. it's going to be years before I have a really sustainable thing going on, you know? And yeah, it's taken so much work. I mean, my husband jokes with me. He's like, I guarantee you work more than 40 hours a week. It's like, guarantee.
Oh, yeah.
So like, he's like, is it worth it? I'm like, it's absolutely worth it though, you know, because I get to do something that just makes my heart happy all the time. And so, yeah, I will gladly put in more than 40 hours a week, especially with the creating content, even though I've posted openly that sometimes I do get burnout on the content creation. And I'm like,
it is so much work, isn't it, though? It is way too much work. Nobody told me how much work it is. I really wish this podcast would make enough money that I could pay someone to do that for me. Because I have no desire to see if I have to make another clip. I am going to throw myself out the window. I cannot do it anymore. I cannot sit down and CapCut and start like chop. I'm like, I'm so amazed by you because there was I remember, I don't know if it's still the case, but I remember there was a time where you were posting at least once a day for a while. And I was like, how is she finding the time? Every time I opened TikTok, you were there. And I was like, how is she finding the time to do this? Like, I can get like twice a week. And even then, I'm like, right, I'm away for a pint. This is too much.
Yeah, even now. So, like, I mean, I still post. I still have almost every day that I'm posting, but I do repurpose a lot of content now because I have 2 years worth of content built up. So it's like, you're finally at that point, and that's where I feel like I'm finally at that tipping point. And I think that that's so important. And I wish that, you know, if I could tell anybody who is going to be starting some sort of account, you know, that once you build up like a couple years worth of content, then you can really start recycling. And you can take a little bit of a breather, right? Like this whole past, basically all of December, I didn't post a new reel. I did not post anything new. I posted, it was all recycled content from the year prior. And it's just on auto post. So, you know, and it was such a relief to just be able to go, okay, I don't have to create any content. Because I love it. It is really fun and it's a nice creative outlet. But when it gets to the point that you have to do it all the time, it can be exhausting.
Oh, I know. And especially with your content, because your account was so original in that sense. I felt it was original, certainly within the flute world. I'd never seen anything like it, like healthy practice approaches and good mentality and all this kind of stuff. It's like, we never talked about this. And you were the kind of person who would kickstart that. I actually got like a little bit of a quote off your website for this because I wanted to talk about this. And this is the main thing. There's a lot of things I want to talk about, but there's one of the main things I want to talk about. But yeah, I got this off your website. It says, I focus heavily on mental health with my students, teach them to be great musicians while balancing healthy mental habits, positive self-talk, and learning to pay close attention to what's going on with their minds and bodies so that they can channel that into music. Music is, first and foremost, a mode of expression, not just a technical practice. Love that. Absolutely love that. That's so beautifully put as well. That's really nice. And especially the thing about healthy mental habits. And I was wondering, like, okay, instead of getting you to give me an example of a healthy mental habit within the flute, can you give me an example of an unhealthy mental habit, one that you see quite often, and how you would convert that into something healthy?
I think the biggest one is this idea of burning the candle at both ends. And I know that that's kind of a goofy little phrase, but you know, the fact that we feel the need. I had a new student recently who just signed on with me, and she said, yeah, I practice for like 4 hours a day. I haven't really taken any breaks, which was just, to me, I'm like, oh, okay, that's I mean, that's awesome, but have you considered the fact that you could be slowing down your own progress by not taking planned rest? So, you know, one unhealthy habit would be, you know, just consistently pushing yourself and pushing yourself and pushing yourself until, you know, what is it that they say? Take the nap before the nap takes you.
What? I've never heard that. But say that
You've
again.
never heard that? Oh, take the nap before the nap takes you. So plan the rest, plan the time off.
That's great.
And so, and also Trevor Y, right? And it's either in Flute Secrets or it's in one of Trevor Y's books. Okay. He specifically outlines like good practice hygiene. And he says, you know, if you're going to practice every single day, take at least 1 full day off a week and at least 2 full weeks off a year.
Okay.
because we need time for our brain to process everything that we learned over the course of the week.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
you can't settle on anything. So, my kind of thought process through all of this is very psychology based. It's very,
Yeah.
rewiring the neural pathways kind of thing, because there are, especially in music school and for, students that have studied in that type of progression, we have built neural pathways. We have built these connections to believe that if we take rest that we're failing.
Yeah.
Right. So we want to rewire that to say, no, we're planning rest. We are planning rest and we are doing that so that we can achieve success.
Yeah.
Because if we don't rest, then the nap will take us. Right.
I know, that's
We'll get burnt
beautifully
out.
put. But like, it makes so much sense when you say it like that. But I remember being at college, and burnout was just a part of college every year for every student. It was so normalized that we just thought, if you're not burning out, there's probably something wrong. You should be practicing a little bit more. Because look at us, it's June and we're all collapsing here. We're the hard workers. And it was awful, but it was every year. And you knew rightly it was unhealthy, but you just rinsed and repeated. It was so drilled into us that you just have to keep practicing. Because I think the idea as well is, when you're doing another subject apart from music, your work can be done. You can go in, do the essay, do the thing. It's done. You've got the grade. Put it in its box. See you next week. But with us, it's always like, but I could do a wee bit more. I could. I've got a bit of energy. I could do another 10 minutes of scales. I could do a bit of intonation. And it is really hard to get yourself out of that cycle without guilt. Like for a long time, I could not enjoy sitting around not practicing. My brain was just going, no, get up them stairs. Go and practice.
Right.
Are you serious? And that's awful. Now I'm the opposite. Now I'm like, I love relaxing now. I do nothing. I went the whole way.
In, these, I've mentioned a few times on my channel, like these old school kind of musical mentalities, we build that into students' brains. We're like, if you're not practicing, you're wasting time. If you're not practicing, if you're not thinking, and that's, so I'll tell my students sometimes. So I had a student last year go take a trip to the UK for 3 weeks over the summer. So cool. Such an incredible experience for her. And she said, well, should I bring my flute? And I said, absolutely not. Do not bring your flute. If you want to do anything, you can upload some of your music to your iPad and, look it over, do some mental practice, listen to, other flutists. I have a playlist that I send to my students when I'm kind of forcing them to rest, or if there's an injury or something. I have a playlist that I'll send to them with just fun and different flute pieces to just listen to and get some inspiration from. Because I'm like, well, first of all, if you don't have these life experiences, you're not going to be able to draw from those life experiences to emote in music, right? So you need that time to just enjoy and step away from your flute. And that's okay. I say this every single day to my students. I'm like, if you need a break, that's okay. If you need a break, that's okay. Now, obviously, if you're not practicing ever, that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But taking a break, I've had, that one particular student, she was in marching band this year and she was getting her butt whooped. Okay. They do 4-hour practices after school and, every day. And she says, well, I didn't really have time to work on our stuff. And I said, that's okay. It's okay. You're practicing your flute, And the week after marching band ended, I said, hey, can you do me a favor? And she said, yeah. I said, can you not touch your flute for a week?
Yeah.
Don't touch your flute for a week.
But do you think you're doing a lot of this because you didn't get this when you were studying? Because I feel like that. I feel like I do a lot of nice things to my students in the way that I'm like, nobody did this for me. And I wish someone told me, I wish one of my teachers was like, just go take a break. You'll be fine, right? You'll be grand. You can win. No one did that for me. And it's a bit like parenting in that sense, isn't it? You don't want to repeat the mistakes of your parents. I don't want to repeat the mistake. I have great teachers, but I don't want to repeat their mistakes. So do you have a similar thing? Is that where this came from?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So my high school teacher, she was incredible for this, right? She was very good for this. And my latest teacher, she was also incredible for this. As far as telling me to rest and telling me to take breaks and whatnot. My college instructor, not so much. My college
Okay.
instructor is kind of and I've told this story on my Instagram, so, without naming any sort of names,
Yeah.
I can tell this again.
Yeah.
There are levels of, not, I'm sorry, let me back up. There are, when college professors, I think in general, don't acknowledge burnout and don't acknowledge what's actually going on and just attribute it to laziness, that's when we get students that just quit.
Yeah.
So I think that's what happened to me, was that, because after college, I quit for a few years and, I was super burnt out. I just did not want to even see my flute, didn't want to touch it, didn't want to look at it. And it was because I was painfully burnt out for years and was told that it was, well, you need to quit being lazy. You need to get into the practice room and do more. And so I think that kind of trauma.
It is trauma. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that kind of trauma has definitely contributed to the way that I, handle students that are, dealing with that. And I try to get ahead of it, right?
Okay.
Before it becomes a problem, you know, with the burnout, I usually try to be a step ahead of it. Like, hey, I can see that you've been working really, really, really hard for the last several months. Let's take a week off, you know? And again, training those neural pathways to not hate yourself when you do that, and to instead go, oh, I planned this. This was on purpose, and this is great, and this feels good.
Yeah.
So,
honestly, there's teachers, obviously I'll not name names as tempted as I am to, but I've watched like really famous teachers over the years, and they get the students come in. I'm like, you did nothing there. I could have given that lesson. All you did was say something like, that was meant to be a G sharp and it was a G natural. That was too slow. I'm like, that's easy, man. We all knew that. The student knows that. You're not helping anything. You're not doing anything. You're just pointing out the obvious.
You're telling them what they already know. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're getting $250 an hour to do it. Man, what's going on here? I'm like, yeah, we're the real teachers. We're in the trenches down here. We're the ones earning these students. Man, it's ridiculous.
Honestly, that's one of the reasons why I love working with younger students and beginners, because like I am teaching them to snuff out the bullshit.
Yeah, early.
And sorry, if you need to cut that, that's fine.
Oh no, I think my listeners will be not too offended at that.
I was gonna say, I don't think they're gonna be offended, but
no.
But yeah, like teaching them to be able to go, you didn't do anything there, you know? And I also, and this is just gonna sound like I don't make a practice of like cutting other teachers down, right? But I do think that it's important. One thing that I did not know going into like college was, you know, when you're auditioning for colleges, remembering that you are auditioning them as much as they are auditioning you.
Of course, yes.
And being able to like suss out whether or not, you know, they're actually doing the things, you know, if they're just going to tell you that you played a G instead of a G sharp, well, that's not really doing much.
Are they going to help you?
Know?
Yeah, I honestly, I find that actually, I remember someone telling me this at the time, and I was like, I didn't believe it either. When I was 18 going to music college, I was basically like, whoever the most famous teacher is that will take me as a student, I'm going. I don't care anything about them. I want that little ego boost. And now over the years, I've realized it's incredibly similar to dating as well. Like, it's very similar. You shouldn't be going and looking for a partner going, oh, well, I'm just doing this because you make me feel better. You should be, dating's a two-way street. You should be trying to impress each other. And it should be like that with your teacher. You should be going and going, well, actually, man, I'm going to be paying you here, by the way. My money. So
and
how are you going to be helping me?
The same goes for jobs when you get out of college. You know, when you go in for a job interview, you're interviewing that company, that person, that boss, as much as they are interviewing you, you know? And if you get bad vibes, if this doesn't feel right to you, the answer is no. You know, I did the exact same thing that you did, where I picked the most, you know, prestigious teacher that would take me, and I hated it. I hated it in my undergrad. And I remember my high school teacher, which I was incredibly blessed to be able to study with this teacher. But she said, you know, I know you, and I know your learning style, and I know who you are, and I don't think you're going to get along with that teacher. And I said, I'll be fine. And yeah, I mean, technically I was, but you know, if I could go back and, you know, shake my younger self, I would say, no, you need to go with this person. While that is not as prestigious of a place to be, you need to go with this person because you got along well with them. You vibed
Yeah.
well with them. They taught you something in your, you know, trial lesson.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, one thing I really wanted to talk about then is sort of on this kind of theme, because you know the classical music industry it feels like it's changing. There's obviously a huge amount of resistance from certain corners of it. We talk about it a lot. For people that don't know, we do message a lot on Instagram and say a lot of things that we're not going to say in this podcast. But one thing I have to ask you about, because you said, and we can cut this if you want to, but I laughed so hard the other day when you were saying, because I could relate to this as well, when we were talking about, I can't remember the context. I do remember the context actually, but talking about social media and what it's like, especially for a woman online. And you had said you walked the line between being a professional and a hood rat very carefully. And I was like, man, that is one of the best phrases I've ever heard. I love it. I didn't even know what a hood rat was. I had to Google what a hood rat was. I was like, that is exactly what I am. But like on a serious note, it is like, it's wild. Like obviously this is fresh from something you just posted like 2 days ago as well, but it is wild out there on social media. It's from like the old, like it's that I can picture that man. There must be a factory in America somewhere churning these men out, but I can picture the like mid-50s band director comes from some town I've never heard of, and they hate women.
Yeah.
And they seem to be out for you. They seem to be you're on their radar.
They do not like me. That is for sure. It is really interesting. And that's been such an interesting experience too. And to be perfectly frank, my experience in sales and being in, you know, a very male dominated side of the industry, I did have a lot of experience with that already. So, you know, I know that somebody told me like, oh, you should just block these people. I'm like, no, I will not be doing that. And the reason is because one, I want this person to serve as an example for what happens. And two, I want to show my students and the people that follow me, because I have so many women and young women and, you know, that and young women who want to be in this world. I want to show them that you do not have to roll over, and we are not rolling over. As a matter of fact, one of the people that I love the most would be Catherine Needleman. Oh my gosh. Man. Just absolutely
that woman is
ripping.
Fierce.
Yes.
Fierce. I love her.
Just absolutely ripping people to shreds. And I'm like, you are amazing. You are my idol. No fear. You are everything that I want to be in this world, you know? But yeah.
There's a lot of men that are terrified of her in the classical music industry as well. It's great to watch. Every day she's got something on her face. Anyone who doesn't have her, by the way, she's most active on Facebook. Catherine is an oboe player, and oh my god, it is pure entertainment. Every day she's posting something, and she is afraid of no one. She is fearless. It is amazing. She's taking the fight out there, man. It's great. Have you ever spoke to her? Have you ever like messaged her or anything?
I have not. I've been just kind of quietly following, and every once in a while I chime in with something snarky. Against somebody who decides to start a fight in the comment section, which a lot of people do.
But did you expect, like, when you started your social media thing, were you ready for this? Were you thinking, like, this is going to be part of the challenge of being a woman online? No. Or was it, no?
I did not, again, like, I had experience with it in the past, but in my mind, that was not going to be an issue on a flute teacher's page.
I would have thought the same thing.
Yeah, some of the comments, some of the things that I have dealt with, I did not expect. Because, you think that in certain industries, it's just, there's a level of professionalism that, is just not going to happen. But that's simply not the case. There are still, with lack of a better phrase, trash humans everywhere. And, I think that, especially, and without getting too terribly political right now, I know that I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm very open about this stuff on my socials. I think that particularly in the United States, we're in a very unique time where, that kind of attitude and that kind of treatment of other people is very normalized. And particularly that treatment of women is very normalized. And, if you could have seen like my DMs after, the day after the election, and just some of the horrific things that were said to me,
I remember you posting something. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, we are in a very unique time in the United States where, again, we're seeing the people that used to be embarrassed by, their treatment, are now no longer embarrassed, and they're open and they're out and they're yelling and screaming it.
They really are, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that, sometimes I hesitate and I go, is this really a professional way for me to act on the internet? Right? Is this really professional? But at the same time, I am modeling the way that I want my students to stick up for themselves.
Bingo. Yeah.
And, even if that means that, obviously if I lose a couple of followers, it is what it is. I'm not in it for the followers.
Yeah.
But, it's very important to me that I show to my students that while you can be an empathetic and compassionate person, you can be a mindful person, that does not mean that you get to roll over and take bullying and take, some of the horrific things that I've seen said to other women. And again, that's one of the reasons why I don't just block and move on.
No, I think you're totally right too. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and it's funny because I'll tell you the most negativity that I get is not on Instagram. It's usually on Facebook. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anybody.
Nope.
But yeah, so I will say that for that reason, I'm not as active on, Facebook as I am on like Facebook. Instagram and TikTok. But because it is just a dumpster fire of.
It is awful, Facebook. Although it does kind of give me energy as well. But honestly, I mean this in the best way possible, but I kind of wish these people would go after me, because I love it. When people go after me, I get so stuck into them. It is great. I am merciless because I love it, man, because I have a totally different attitude towards this.
On that, I saw you commented and I was like, yes, yes.
We should give everyone a little bit of context of that one for anyone who didn't see it. But that one was particularly like, I was looking at going, who sits down and takes out their phone and types that? Who just thinks, I'm going to type this under my name? I'm not even going to use a pseudonym. I'm going to say this on the internet to a woman I don't know. And that's fine. So I think you put up, it was something about, you were sitting on a boat and you had some kind of caption about Flute playing. I can't remember what it was exactly. It was a reel.
Yeah, I was sitting. Yeah, I was actually at my sister-in-law's place on the beach, and I was sitting there like playing my flute. I don't even know. I recorded this one like 2 years ago. Yeah, and it said something to the effect of, the problem with old world music education is the fact that it doesn't value, mental health, emotional stability, that kind of thing. And there was a lot of information in the caption, right? There was because you have about 15 characters of text that you can put in a reel, right? So there was a lot of information that I typed into the caption about what I meant, examples of that. And this person decided that they didn't appreciate that. And they said that I was just trying to be an influencer, and that I was just, what was it? I was showing off my body, and that the boat didn't help, didn't give any suggestions. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, because it didn't make total sense.
So I just woken up when I saw it. It was the first thing I saw when I got out of bed and decided to check my email and my socials.
What did I to start? Yeah.
What am I even looking at? And so, I was just very matter of fact in my response. I'm like, why are you so upset?
Yeah.
Did you read the caption? I don't really understand how my channel has never been let me show off my body and be an influencer. That's never been my channel. Ever. I don't think anybody in the history of my channel has gotten that impression.
And also that reel was nothing to do with that. Anyway.
Yeah. And so I'm just like, okay. And then, you and a couple other people just absolutely went feral, and it was amazing.
I
just
love it.
Absolutely incredible. And then, I think one of the later comments, he said, I'm sorry that I'm mean. And I said, well, no, you don't, and kind of did some self-pitying, I'm not employed anymore. And I said, well, you probably would be employed if you didn't act like this, because I can only imagine if you're willing to treat a fellow teacher on the internet that you don't even know this way. I can only imagine what it must be like to be a colleague of yours, let alone a student of yours.
Exactly. Like this, for anyone who goes, because I think the reel and the comments are still there. Like I checked back not too long ago and they were still there. But anyway, wants to what I said. I probably should clarify my own comments on it because I say things sometimes just to get it. I just say things to wind people up. Okay, I do it purely to get a wind out of people. I don't always mean it, but I think I had said, "Tell me if." I replied to him saying, "Tell me you're a virgin without telling me you're a virgin." There's nothing wrong with being a virgin. Okay, I should really clarify that. I'm not going after virgins. I just wanted to say something that was going to hurt him.
Yes.
And that's I knew it would.
And I think based on his response, he was very, very hurt by that.
But I love it.
Yeah.
But again, you're totally right.
I woke up on January 1st and chose violence when it came to that stuff, and that's where I'm at. And that's okay. Like I said, I am here, and I've said this several times, I am here with the one goal of changing the way that the music industry, the music world is, and that is part of it, right?
Yeah. You're giving an example though as well to your students, which is so important because I'm assuming all your students follow you on social media.
Most of them, yeah. Yeah. Or quite a few, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I am setting that example that, this is not how we're not just going to take that type of abuse online or in person, right? We've
100%.
seen so many examples of, abuse towards women in the music industry just in 2023. Just in 2023, we saw so many examples. And that is where I'm saying, no, we're going to stand up and we are going to be we can be kind and empathetic without being doormats, without, without, allowing this to continue. That's a beautiful thing. And I love that we're turning things around towards that. And I'm absolutely living for the fact that we are calling out those things happening, in person, in colleges, on social media. I'm living for it. I love it.
I think it's great. It's nice to see people doing it as well. I had a similar problem with it as well. I never tell my students about the podcast, and which I know is strange because it's like my thing now, but I never tell them, and I know they probably all find it. We never talk about it in lessons. I don't want to seem like I'm pushing it on them either, but my other worry was, are they going to find it, and then are their parents going to find it, and I'm saying political things, and I'm swearing, and I'm like that, and I thought, do you know what? Fuck it if they do, because like, that's what I'm like. Okay, I'm professor at the same time. It's not like I turn up to my lessons and swear in them to my students. Obviously not. But if anyone's under any impressions, like, for example, if I share a comment on the American election, which I've shared many comments on the American election because it's a fucking disaster. Right. If someone comes to me and says, "Hey, Gareth, I want to get lessons. I voted for Trump." I go, "Fuck off. No, you're not allowed to come to lessons for me. No, you're not allowed to. Go to someone else. I don't want to teach you. Don't want to be your mate. Yep. I wouldn't talk to you in a bar. You're not allowed to come here." That's not controversial for me. That's fine. And I have very strong opinions on all this. And now I'm like, yeah, I think it's better my students know this as well. I should know that you don't have to take this. And one of the big things is always, I was told anyway, as a kid, when I was younger, especially when social media was in the infancy, is of like, oh, be careful. You might lose out on your job if you say the wrong thing online. I'm like, well, I haven't. I've lost out on jobs for other reasons, but I've not lost out because of what I've said online, because I'm not being a dickhead. I'm defending my right, and I'm speaking my truth, but I'm being sensible within reason. There's nothing wrong with it.
Not being, I think we still unsensibly cruel. You're not being, I think that it's more likely, and the things that I have said to my students that are planning on going on to be professional musicians. One was, I had a younger student. I want to say she was like 15 or 16. She was like commenting on other flutists on YouTube and like saying things that they were doing wrong. And I said, that's how you're going to lose a job. That's how you're going to lose, that's not good. We don't do that. We are not overly competitive.
But that's
a
point to teach as well. That is a point. Because when you're 15, you're 15. Like, God, I'm so glad when I was 15, most of that is gone.
Dumb things when I was 15.
I'm glad smartphones weren't about when I was 15, because I would be cancelled so hard.
Oh, I know.
Not for like bad things, but like most of my years as 15, I was running about with a lighter and a tin of deodorant, setting things on fire. That was my thing when I was 15. There's no videos of it, so you can't cancel me for it. But it's good to teach and to learn. And even when you were saying earlier, like, we're music teachers. Being a music teacher is hard enough. Okay, there's no funding, there's no support for it. It's a shitty industry. Before we all start fighting each other, like, for fuck's sake, at least support each other. Don't stop shitting on your colleagues. Like, stop picking on other music, especially flute teachers. If you're gonna pick on anyone, pick on the clarinet teachers. All right, don't get them. Leave us alone. All right.
Low brass. They'll be fine.
Yeah, go pick on a tuba player. What are they gonna do? But don't pick on your other flute players. Like, we're meant to be a nice community. We are not. The community is so wild that sometimes. I mean, for the huge part it is, but I
will say that I love the Instagram flute community. They are the Instagram and TikTok flute community. Like, we are all just like, and it's like, it's not a very large community, so we all mostly know each other and we all support each other, and we're all just, it's so great. It's so great. But yeah, you get in, Flute Forum and, places like that, and you're just like, this is a dumpster fire.
It's great. I love Flute Forum. Oh my God. Like, Flute Forum gives me energy. Flute Forum is the reason I'm here. Flute Forum, I go into it every day.
I have to selectively go into Flute Forum for my own mental health sake.
No, exactly. No, I'm ready. I go up ready for a fight.
Going ready for a fight.
I love it. I love some of the things people say. I was like, why would you say that? Why are you being mean? Oh, it's great.
You say that to somebody?
But then, so you were telling me, you're originally from South Carolina.
South Carolina. Yep.
Which is not where the Hardy Boys are from. That's what I thought. They're from North Carolina.
Yes.
And I think I asked you before if there was anyone famous from South Carolina. There wasn't that many people apart from you. But South Carolina, I had no perception of what that was. And then you told me a little bit about it. So it's fair to say you're quite working class then. You're not you weren't born with a silver spoon in your mouth.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. It's definitely, I grew up in rural South Carolina, a little town of 10,000 people where, service industry was it. And, there weren't many jobs. Most people were commuting, an hour and a half to get any sort of work. And of course, I was growing up in the years of the, recession happening, and I again grew up in a working class family, so it was different for me to it was not common. It's not super common in that area for you to have classical musicians coming out of that. And I think that I was very, very unbelievably fortunate. So in South Carolina, there is a school called the South Carolina Governor's School for Arts and Humanities. And it's about 3.5 hours north of where I grew up. And you had to audition for it. You could live on campus for your last 2 years of high school. So it's very college-like, and we studied with, doctors, and, it was amazing.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate in that I was able to go there for my last 2 years of high school. And however, I will say that, prior to that, I kind of came in to that school as the worst flute player in the studio because I didn't have access to private teachers.
Yeah.
Before that, I didn't have access to even sheet music at the time. The internet was not what it is today. Amazon was just coming, up as like an online bookstore. So I even didn't have access to, quality instrument. And one of I think we've talked about this a little bit in the past, how, the classical music world does not look kindly on not being able to afford a high quality instrument most of the time. And I think that really, for me, that really developed a lot of grit. Because I had to fight really hard against those things to get there. Again, going to this school that I auditioned for, I decided, hey, I want to be a professional musician. I know where I need to go. And I knew that I needed to go to the governor's school. And so I pushed really hard. I was one of 2 flute players accepted that year out of the entire state. And, being able to, that school has churned out some incredible people. Several Tony Awards, and I am probably not the most impressive. I'm certainly not the most impressive person that's come out of that. However, just having that available, because it is a public school. It's technically a public school, even though you have to audition to go there.
Yeah.
And so I didn't pay any tuition. And that
Okay,
made
wow.
a huge difference.
Yeah, especially in
because
America,
otherwise
wow.
I would not have been able to go.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
and I think one of the biggest fights that I struggled with was the quality instrument issue growing up. I was kind of working with used instruments, with not so great instruments, even once I did get a new instrument. I joke that I played with $100 flute that my parents found off of eBay that was like a no name, came wrapped in plastic. Flute for the first 3 or 4 years that I was playing. So, I think that, but I think that that's just a testament to the fact that it can happen, right? You can get there.
And isn't it not something as well, like, it's something I talk about a lot in this podcast, and I think I come across as maybe having a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about coming from the working class, because classical music is so elitist. But I did an episode recently with my mum, and then it sort of drilled home a little bit. There is advantages to it as well, coming from the working class, that people born in the middle classes don't have, that we're actually quite lucky to have. I wouldn't change where I come from for that reason, because I feel like it's taught me a lot of things and given me a lot of skills that other people don't. Like, I remember my mum saying in the podcast, for example, the day I failed the flute competition or didn't pass in Paris, I rang her and she was on holidays with her girlfriends. They go to Spain every year on their holidays, a girls' trip away, and they were all obviously sitting on a balcony drinking wine. And I was crying. I was like, I didn't get it, blah, blah, blah. And my mum hadn't got a clue. But all the girls were sitting around the table and they were all crying and they hadn't got a fucking clue what the flute was about. But we're like, but Gareth, you're the best. You know you're the best. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, that's what you get. You get 6 women drinking rosé supporting you no matter what. You don't get that in the middle classes. We get that.
Yeah.
Do you not think you've
absolutely.
learned things? Like, you get things, don't you?
Yeah, I did. And, and I can speak similarly, where it's like, when I remember in high school, the first time I auditioned for all-state band, and I did not make it. And it was one of those things where, like, but my band director, my family, they were all just like, no, you should have made it. You're amazing. Because they didn't necessarily have a concept of how incredible the flutists that were ahead of me were, but they all believed in me so heavily. And I appreciate that to no end. And again, I do think that there are benefits to the grit that you have to develop, to the work ethic that you develop in a working class situation when you're trying to get into, because most of us in working class families couldn't necessarily afford to go to the camps, the orchestra camps, and do all these like, extra trips. I know that when I was in high school, the music program went to Italy for spring break, and our choir sang at the Vatican. It was amazing.
Wow.
But I did not get to go, and if I wish that I could have gone, that would have been incredible, but I just wasn't able to. So I had to make up for that. I made up for that experience in other ways. Right.
Which I love. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think that, I tell students a lot, yes, there are benefits to being able to do all these things. There are certainly benefits to having a really nice flute. There are certainly benefits to having access to all, these incredible private teachers, but that doesn't mean that you can't make it happen if you don't have these things. It's kind of like the idea of like having all those like silly accessories that, they sell to like make your sound better. And, those are cool and all, but they're not going to make up for the hard work on this side of things.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so nice to see more diverse voices online in the flute world and the classical music world, like these days, especially seeing people from working class background, basically not seeing the same 50-something-year-old straight white English guy with a posh accent who went to like Royal Academy of Music, and I'm like, oh god, I've seen so many of yous. I am fed up to you. It's so nice to see different voices getting involved and influencing it. Like, the good thing is, okay, where are the I think there's a bit of a cultural change going on. I look at the generation below us. I say us, I think you're younger than me, but still we're roughly the same kind of generation.
Yeah.
The generation, like the 18s, 19-year-olds now, they've got a different attitude. It's great to see. And I really hope their generation is going to come forward and really push this through and change classical music properly. And I hope I can influence them a little bit, and we can do a little bit of a thing, and then they're the ones that are really going to do the job. Like, right, you guys fucking bring down the system.
Was it Gen Z? Gen Z is really doing just incredible things in the world in general. And I think that they are really going to have the power, because we still have in our like millennial generation, we still have a large number that are still very stuck in some of these older ways. Yeah. And, but the 50% of us or whatever percentage that are like, okay, we need to change things. We're influencing that generation, and that generation is like, no, we're changing it. We're doing this.
They've got such a ball. I love the generation below us. Mm-hmm. They're doing great.
I think it's incredible. Yeah. And just seeing them in the workplace is amazing. Like, just their like, their attitudes to corporate America is amazing. I work with, I do work with somebody that's in that generation, I think technically like on the cusp of like millennial gen, but they are very, very outspoken and very, no, this is what I need. This is what I deserve. This is what, and I love it. I'm here for it because you need to take advantage of those things, right? Yeah. You deserve certain things. You deserve certain things as a human, as an employee, as a musician, and you need to demand those
100%. Yeah. Yeah, because our generation, we were too crippled by anxiety to do anything about it. We were the worst things. I look at millennials man, we really saw, because we went, to be fair, I don't want to be like poor us, but like we went through 2 economic crashes and, COVID and many other things. And then, people voting for people they shouldn't vote for in certain countries as well. So we've had a rough time of it, okay? But yeah, we were crippled by anxiety.
What is the joke about like one more life-changing historical event? Millennials are just like, okay.
Don't even start.
Was it the Pirates of the Caribbean meme where it's like first time,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's us. That's
nothing phases me anymore, man. I'm over this all. It's great to see this fight. Okay, so I do have some fun questions I want to ask you, which I feel like now that we've touched on the subject of millennial, this is gonna drill this home hard.
Oh God.
What age we are, because we've talked about similar music tastes. We'll get to it in a minute. But anyway, we'll start. I think I sent you these, so we'll go through them. Do you have a favorite flute concerto or a favorite flute piece? I prefer concerto, but either or.
I'm going to say piece. Okay. And Syrinx is still the love of my life.
Really?
Yeah, so that was my first, that was the piece that I heard and played in high school that, changed the game for me.
Really?
And just absolutely had me fall completely head over heels in love with flute.
What age were you when you heard that?
What's that?
How old were you roughly when that happened, when you heard it for the first time?
When I heard it for the first time, I was probably 15.
Okay. Do you think there's a bit of a link between, listening to Evanescence and Syrinx?
I'm sure. I love the story behind Syrinx.
It is kind of,
It's a little dark, I tend to tell the G-rated version to my students that are starting to play it for the first time, and I encourage them to Google it if they want the
real one,
but the story is just it's so, I don't know. It's kind of the opposite of what we're used to in flute playing. We're used to being birds, and we're used to being beautiful. And this is angry. This is trauma. Yeah. This is torture. This is not okay. Yeah. This is, there are themes of assault and murder, essentially, and I think that I would agree. I think that the dark, broody part of me was like, that's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely suits Eyeliner, definitely. Heavy Eyeliner and Syrinx, they go well together.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of classical musicians as well. When I was 15, I was very into, maybe not so much Shostakovich, but certainly that kind of thing. The heavy, dark Russian romantics. Well, that was, my rebellious thing of classical music. Mozart, never heard of him, all right? Mozart's too happy. I think everyone in that kind of... 15, you hated Mozart for a little while. You're like, oh no, it's too happy. Yeah.
Everybody hates Mozart at some point in their teen years.
Yeah, and then
and maybe into adulthood.
Well, Syrinx a great answer. No one said that. Okay, do you remember the first flute album you ever bought, or CD, or anything?
I'm of the LimeWire generation, so.
Oh, what an answer! So you just riddled your family computer with viruses.
Yeah,
instead?
I just downloaded like 80 songs at the same time and just put all kinds of viruses on my family computer. It was good times.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah.
It was probably something Galway, if I had to guess. I definitely had a little bit of an obsession, which has waned in current years. Not as obsessed with his style and sound and whatnot as I once was, but I think that was the first real like big flutist that I was aware of anyway.
Okay.
So I think that's where that kind of obsession came from. But yeah, if I had to guess, it was probably something Galway.
Okay. Yeah, LimeWire as well. That's so funny. Do you remember
Definitely
then?
aging myself then.
This is going to tie in great then. Do you remember the first album in general that you bought? So it doesn't have to be anything to do with classical music or the flute.
It was probably...
Please
I'm
sing
going to say
Encore.
Sublime Greatest Hits.
Oh, wow. I was not expecting that one. Wow.
Okay, so I definitely went... Like, I have... In my life, I have, just faded in and out of like goth culture and hippie culture.
Yeah.
It's very very odd. So I can show you some pictures. I had dreads at one point, like that was me. And
wow.
It's not a great look, to be perfectly honest. Not my favorite thing that I did, but we all have our moments and we are all embarrassing at some point. So I own it. But yeah, so that was very much in that line. So I think Sublime Greatest Hits would have been my first album that I ever bought.
Awesome. Okay. What song would you sing at karaoke if I made you do karaoke? Have you done karaoke?
Probably. What's that?
Have you done it before? Have you done karaoke?
I have, but it's been a long time. Time. I'm not much of a singer, and I usually try to. I joke about that in my lessons too. I'm like, I'm gonna sing this, and you're gonna hate it. Sometimes, like if I have to.
Yeah, I know. I sing all the time. Like, I'm sorry.
I know. I'm like, look, it's not gonna be pretty, but it's gonna get the point across. Right?
You're gonna get the idea. Yeah. Okay, but if I made you get up and do karaoke, what would you do?
I'm gonna pick something like super cringy and be all like Blink 182.
Yeah. Which
Miss
one?
You.
Ah, yes.
Yep. Where are you?
I was just about to do that. Great. Okay,
I
great
actually
answer.
got to see them in concert this last year, and
did
honestly,
you?
It made my little emo heart happy.
Were they good? I haven't seen them yet.
Incredible.
Okay.
Absolutely 10 out of 10. Best concert I've ever been to. Absolutely.
Okay. Wow. Because I liked Blink, but I was much more Sum 41. Sum 41 were very much my vibe when I was younger. So, and they don't seem to have had the success and the popularity in these recent years that Blink had. Because like back in the day, Sum 41 as well, the lead singer was like, he was married to Avril Lavigne for a while. It was the thing at that time, and then they sort of disappeared. So Blink, I like them obviously, but I was always a bit more Sum 41. But I wanted to see them, but the tickets were like expensive when they came to Germany. They're like €150, which for Germany is like obscene.
Yeah, it was. Well, and I had just moved to San Diego too, so I was absolutely shocked by how expensive everything is in comparison to where I lived in the past. So yeah, we paid a lot more money than I think I would have paid for a concert in the past.
Okay.
But I desperately wanted to see them because I've just had I remember my brother getting a Blink-182 album for Christmas when I was probably like 10 or 11. I was pretty young, and I stole it from him, and he never listened to it, not one time, and it just became mine.
Then that was your personality then? That was it?
Yeah, that was it.
That's great. That's it.
Yeah.
That's personality for 30 years locked in. Oh, great. Yeah. Love that. Yeah. Back in the days we had CDs as well. Oh, that sounds really old when I say that as well, yeah. I know. Anyway,
somebody asked I was teaching a beginner band class the other day, and one of the teachers made a comment about a CD, and one of the students went, "What's a CD?" And I went, "Oh no."
No. Oh, I hate when that happens. The worst one is for me when I've been teaching in recent years. When I started teaching, I used to make the reference to Darth Vader. When it came to breathing, this would get the idea of opening the throat and like breathing deeply. Kids these days, not a clue who Darth Vader is. I was like, how do you not know who Darth Vader is, man? It's Darth Vader. Like,
Oh,
seriously.
yeah.
And that breaks your heart. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
going to have to pick one of your, like, I don't know. I even know Paw Patrol. I don't know what kids are listening to these days. It sounds
I
so
just
old.
do make me feel so old. Like, this was probably
Yeah.
right when I started teaching again. I was working out of the Melodious and Progressive, the book one, and it was my original book. And my teacher had written something 2008 or something in there, like had written a date by which she wanted me to work on this piece. And my student went, huh, I was born in 2008.
No.
And I
went,
no. Stop.
That's,
like,
people aren't born. 2008 was last week. How are people born? Oh, that's disgusting.
Get out of my house now.
That is disgusting. Yeah, but sure, like, people born in 2000, like, people are like 25 now. There's people at 25 who are born post-millennium.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I was actually talking to a person the other night who, when they told me when they were born, it just clicked in my head. I was like, you were born after the Spice Girls broke up. You didn't even know the Spice Girls existed. And I was like, and you're an adult. You're in a pub here drinking beer with me. And no, not right. Yeah. Oh, God. This is depressing. Right, okay. Anyway, okay. I think the questions. If you could switch instruments but still be as good as you are on the flute, what would you switch to?
Cello.
Ah, everyone says cello. Why the cello?
I know. But there are studies that say the reason why people love cello so much is because it's so close to the human voice. That's why people gravitate to it. But yeah, I would love to play the cello, but I don't have the patience for
Have you ever tried?
No.
Okay. Oh, one day.
I tried violin at one point, and I can play a little bit of like guitar and ukulele, but I don't love the string thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, if you could have a career outside of music, totally outside of it, what would you do?
I think it would be audiology.
Which
I looked into it's human hearing, dealing with hearing loss and deafness and whatnot.
Yeah.
I actually love working, so I can sign ASL,
That's
and
right,
I love working with the deaf community. I think they are just such incredible and cool people. And you know, I love that you know, people that are not deaf and people who don't have experience with the deaf community feel like it's a disability when it's just really not in most of the deaf community's mind. And I love the language that they've created, you know, that ASL has created and the culture and just the study of the acoustics and human hearing and how that all works is just really fascinating to me. So before I quit my corporate job and started teaching again, I was actually on track to start an audiology program within 2 years. But I realized that teaching was, once again, as much as I tried to run from it for the longest time, it was what I was put on this earth to do.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. That's really cool, actually. I forgot. I remember we had a conversation once about you saying you signed as well. That was really cool. Oh, yeah. I'd love to learn that someday. But yeah. Great. 2 questions left. If you could have a drink with any musician, alive or dead, who would it be?
Oh, this one's a hard one. This is such a hard one.
It's hard to know. Do you go classical or do you go cool?
I know. I tried to like think of one because I knew that this was going to be a question. I was like, I tried to think of one for the longest time last night. Honestly, I feel like it would be, and this is going to just sound really lame, but I feel like if I could have a drink right now, it would be my old high school teacher, because she is an incredible musician and I would just love to I'd love to hear her philosophy on just a lot of the things that I was dealing with in high school and the way that she handled them. Because I ultimately, I think she's an incredible teacher and I want to be a better teacher. Yeah. And yeah. So, and I know that that's totally possible. Like I could call her and she lives in North Carolina, but you know, I could make it happen, but I think that's the one that, yeah.
You can send her a link to this podcast and then there you are.
There we go. Yeah. Maybe she'll call me up and have a virtual beer with me.
That is a beautiful answer. That's adorable. Okay, and then the last question. What is your favorite drink? You can have alcoholic or non-alcoholic, or you can give an answer for both, whatever you want.
I'm a cider girl. I like ciders.
Really? Okay.
I like, ciders and meads and whatnot.
Mead?
Definitely. Yeah.
Do people still drink mead? I thought that was like 1300s.
Yes. It's a little bit on the like hipstery side of things. Like you gotta
Hipsters
go.
drink mead?
Yeah. It's like it's in that like IPA culture, you know? It's the, like,
Mead?
oh, you've never heard of this, but it's really good. You know?
I'm thinking of mead as in like, you know, like those tankers that they drink in like the King Henry the
I mean,
Fourth.
it should be drank out of that, but I mean, I usually they come in like huge bottles though, so like I always feel like as I'm drinking it, I'm like, okay, like I swear I'm not a problem. Like I'm not sitting here drinking a 40 out of a paper bag, you know.
Which I want to do as well. I've never done that. I want to do that someday. But yeah. I always see that in the movies and make it look so cool. But anyway.
Right, yeah. Have you ever watched How I Met Your Mother?
Yeah.
Okay, Edward 40 Hands, just absolutely my favorite joke.
Oh, we had that.
Like...
We had that. We had the same. We had Edward Wine Hands when we were in college. Yeah. I'm never gonna tell that story in this podcast because that is one of the most horrific stories I've ever had in my life.
You
because
will absolutely be cancelled.
We stuck to that. Like I remember we played that every weekend. We were in Cardiff at music college. We stuck to the rules hard. And like when you drink 2 bottles of wine, you need to pee. And I have made very close friendships with my friends. We got a lot closer after playing that game. Put it that way.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm
anyway,
sure.
I was fucking gonna have to edit that out. But yeah. Mead. There you are. I didn't know mead existed.
Yeah, I like sweet stuff. I like, you know, like I said, like the ciders and it's good stuff. But yeah, just don't drink enough to get hungover because the hangover is horrific.
Oh yeah, sugary hangovers are the worst. Yeah. Nah, that's why I don't drink cider.
Terrible.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Well, then we're at the end. Is there anything you want to plug, tell people about? Obviously, they can check you out on Instagram and social media and all that kind of thing. Tattooed Flute Teacher, very easy to find. TikTok as well. YouTube, obviously, as well. Now you've got like different levels of content, like different lengths of content as well now going up and stuff. So I encourage everyone to go and subscribe and do all that shit as usual. Is there anything you want to tell them about?
No. I think we've covered so much ground today.
Oh my god, yes. Cannot wait to edit this one.
I love it.
Well then, thank you very much, Cassie, for coming on. This was so much fun.
Yeah, this was great. I'm glad we were finally able to do this. I know we've been talking about it for like a year.
I know. But we got there eventually. Yeah, this is going to be number 80 as well. It's quite a bit of a landmark episode. So yeah, it's very cool. Well, thank you very much.
What?
And
Actually, I do want to touch on one thing. Sorry.
Go.
I think I meant to mention this in talking about like moving. And that just, my brain just went.
Go.
So if you were going to move studios, if you were going to move across the country, a couple of things that I want to make sure that you do right away. SEO on your website. Change the SEO, update it, push it, make sure that it is correct. Make connections, make so many connections, email everybody, call everybody. Do not be shy. Just send the damn email.
Love that. And
be generous with your time. Be generous with your time. It's hard to make connections in a new area. It's scary. But you know, go buy somebody a coffee, teach a free sectional, do all of those things because, you know, if you're generous with your time, then people are going to be generous in recommending you or hiring you or whatever it is. You know, this has been moving from Indiana to San Diego has been one of the hardest things I've ever done. It has been fraught with just all kinds of emotion, but you know, the best thing that I did was just send the damn email and
love it.
Being generous and, you know, giving more than I'm taking. Essentially.
That is wonderful. Yeah, I'm actually going to take notes on that as well because I can learn a thing or two from that as well. Thank you very much. That's gorgeous. What a beautiful way to end the podcast. It's very poetic. Thank you very much then. And thank you everybody for listening. And yeah, I'll see you all next week then. Bye everybody.
Awesome.